Hi folks, this is Tim Garman for SIT on NZDP101, and I'm going to take a very quick look at the pen tool. Now there's a lot to cover in this short video, so I may not cram it all in. I want to keep it fairly short. But I've got this fire truck image open from week 9, and there's lots of other things you're going to be doing to this image to edit it. So I'm only going to focus on using the pen tool to draw in the telephone wires or telegraph wires going to the telegraph pole. So to do that, we've got the pen tool selected over on the tools panel on the left. Now if we click and hold down, we'll see there are a number of different pen tools available. The straightforward pen tool will just enable us to click once and then move somewhere else and click, and you see we get a line connecting the two anchor points, and that is called a path. Now for us to be able to see the path later on, we need to color it. While it's still a path, it's indicated in blue, so that's not the actual color of the line we're going to draw. Now if I click and click again so that we get a path between the two anchor points and continue to click, we can, if we come over to the start point and click, we get a closed shape. Now using the same pen tool, if I click and drag, you see we get these two handles. And if I click and drag somewhere else, we get another two handles and we get a curved path. Click and drag again, and I can keep going until I go over the start point, and then I get a closed shape. So that's how we draw a shape with curved edges. Let's delete that. Let's look at the freeform pen tool. Well, this is just a freehand pen tool, so I can just click and drag and draw any kind of path. Coming down further, the curvature pen tool, slightly different. If I click and drag and keep going, you'll see this is a method of drawing more or smoother curves. You see it's much more of an ellipse or a freehand ellipse shape. So those first three pen tools are really for drawing. The second two with the plus and the minus against I'll demonstrate later, but they are for adding or subtracting anchor points, and then the last one is to convert a point. So we'll just stick to the pen tool to begin with. So let's draw our telegraph wire. I'm going to click outside of the print area and click and drag so we get the handles, and then we choose where we want the path to go to on the telegraph pole. Click and drag, and then we get our path created. Now what if we want to edit our path? Now if I choose the command key on a Mac, which will be the control key on a PC, you'll notice that the cursor changes to the direct selection tool. Now that's useful because if I then click the path, I can reselect it and edit it, and I've still got the command or control key held down so that I can edit it to where I want that path to be. If I click away from it, that deselects it. Now if we come over to the paths palette on the right, click on the tab, we see that we have a work path, and that path that we created is indicated as a thumbnail in that work path. Now we can give that, first of all we can save that path, and that might be useful if you want to close the file down and then reopen it. If you do that, that path will still be there, but we can also give that path a name if we want to. So you're going to have quite a few of these lines to create these telegraph wires. So let's put another one in. So we're going to click and drag, choose another point to go to, click and drag, and don't forget we can go to the command key or the control key on a PC to get our direct selection tool, which we can edit our path with. So perhaps it's looking something like that. Now this is an opportunity to just show you how the add anchor point tool and the delete anchor point tool work. Select the add tool and we can add a point to that path. Now that gives you another point on the path which you can then, if we choose the direct selection tool by holding our command or control key down, we can edit that individually. Now that's not the sort of path that we want, and I would recommend that you don't have an anchor point in the middle of this path, because every time you have an anchor point, it's an opportunity for the path to change direction slightly. So if you want a nice smooth curve, just one anchor point at either end is what you want. It's also worth pointing out that even without the add anchor point selected, so if we go back to the pen tool, when we put the pen tool over a path and click, we can add an anchor point that way as well. So the next thing we're going to do is color this path, or both of these paths. So let's first of all select the path. So holding the command or control key down, we can select our paths that way, and we're going to choose the pencil tool. When we do that, we look at the option strip and we notice that it's just a 1 pixel size at the moment. That's on my option strip anyway. It may not be the same on yours, but I can change that and change it to a thicker line, but it doesn't want to be very thick. Let's go for 5 pixels. That might be too thick, but let's give it a try. So I've set it at 5 pixels. The next thing I want to do is change the color. So I need to look at the color or the foreground color in the tools panel on the left and click that, and I'm going to choose, I could choose black, but I'm going to choose more of a dark grey and click OK. If I then come over to the paths panel, I can click on the menu and go to stroke path. We've got the pencil tool selected in the stroke path dialog box, so we'll go OK, and if I click in the area underneath the layer or the work path in the paths palette, that will deselect it and deselect the path so we can see the line that we've created. One other thing I'll show you while we're looking at paths is that if we've got perhaps a closed shape with straight lines, maybe we want to change one of these straight lines to a curve. Well, that's where this last tool, convert point tool, comes in useful. So we select that and go to one of the straight paths that we've created, or the anchor point between those straight paths, click and drag, and we get 2 handles again, and we're able to convert what is a corner into a curve. And that's useful because we're often drawing shapes that have both curved edges and sharp corners as well, so we can edit the anchor points in that way. And when we've got at the shape that we want, so we may have perhaps drawn around one of these logs, for instance, with a path, we can also come over to the paths palette on the right and the menu in the corner and make that path a selection. We can vary it a little by giving it a blurred edge with a feathered radius, but we'll not do that. We'll just go OK, and that turns the path that we created into a selection. One final thing to point out, let's delete that selection first. Coming back to the layers palette, and I probably should have said this at the start, that when we draw these lines for the telegraph wires, it would be a good idea to create a new layer. We might call it lines or something like that, and to be working on that layer. Now I've done that straight onto the image, so that's a destructive process. I should really be drawing those lines, and we've got the color and we've got the size of the line already selected. So let's go to paths and stroke that path I've just drawn, and then click over here to hide the path. So we've now seen the line that I've just created there. If I go back to the layers palette, that line that I've drawn is on that new layer. So that gives us a lot more flexibility. It's working non-destructively, hasn't affected the background image. Also, it gives me the opportunity, if I select that layer, of using some blending modes. And that might just help your line to sit back into the image a little bit more. Perhaps if we select multiply. Now you're not going to see a lot of difference on that, but if you've chosen perhaps a paler grey for that line and choose multiply, that may give you a more realistic effect. More about blending modes in its own little video, but that is paths for the moment.